If you're watching this video, then chances are you are an adult flute student. And I have to say, I absolutely love working with this group of students. There are so many wonderful advantages to being an adult student. But there are also some big mistakes that I see these students make. And today I want to walk you through those mistakes and show you how you can actually solve them. Stay tuned for our third point, because in my opinion, this third point is probably the most severe and dangerous mistake that you could be making. For those of you who are new around here, well, firstly, welcome. My name is Tatiana, and this is the Flute Practice, a space developed for players just like you to help you learn and grow on this beautiful instrument. Now, I really and truly believe that when we come to flute practice or playing the flute, it's not just about the flute. It's really about the person behind the flute, which is you. That's right, you. And a lot of what we're going to look at today has got, believe it or not, a lot to do with you and a little lot less to do with your flute. And this kind of brings me to my first big point, which is very often it's our attitude that is holding us back. So let me break this down. Because you're an adult and you've got a certain amount of life experience, you're usually coming to your flute with a whole lot of stuff. And some of that stuff is really good. We have wonderful experiences that are going to help our learning process, but you also come with a whole lot of other stuff, all your doubts, all your insecurities, maybe even some of those societal voices that are saying things like, it's too late to learn, you're too old, when you get too old you don't learn as fast or you don't learn as well. Either way, as we start learning, we invariably start fighting up against some of this stuff. And the problem is that it also results in us becoming easily discouraged and wanting to give up, when actually if we just gave it half a chance, we would be amazed at what we are capable of. I cannot tell you how often I have said these words to a student where I said, your biggest problem is what's sitting between your ears. It's just the attitude that is holding you back. Now, just to get a bit practical here for a moment, it can be in really small and seemingly insignificant ways. So for example, you're busy practicing something or playing something, and there's this little niggling thought that keeps kind of running around in your mind that says, you're not going to get this, you're not going to get this, you can never do this, you can never play this. And you kind of practice, maybe you even give up sooner than you should have if you'd actually just been practicing and said, I'm going to do this calmly and slowly and eventually I'll get it. Or maybe you didn't even hear that voice and you just kind of kept going. And then you get into a concert situation and that little whisper in the back of your head starts shouting at you. So what do we do? Well, the first really important thing to do here is to start taking note of some of those little thoughts that you're having. What are your personal set of fears, worries, anxieties, beliefs as you get into your practice? So for example, maybe you hear yourself saying things like, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or I feel silly playing the flute, or what will other people think about me? They must think that I'm so silly, or I'm too old, I can't learn this. So just take note of some of these thoughts. I want to share two student stories here. Of course, I'm not going to use their real names, but I think these stories really demonstrate that it is not too late to start and that it is amazing what you can still achieve. So the first student story I want to tell you about, her name, we're calling her Tammy for the sake of the story, and she started the flute in her 50s. She'd always wanted to play the flute. While she did play another instrument for many years, the flute was always the instrument she dreamed about playing. And so, I don't know exactly what age, it was probably around 55 or so, she eventually started to play. Well, all I can say is that within a really short space of time, she has made incredible progress. She is now playing Mozart and Dante in C and really fairly high-level things already, and is still improving every year that I've worked with her. Now, you might say, fair enough, but she's played an instrument. So is that really the best example? Well, enter my other student. I'm going to call her Mally for the sake of the story. Well, Mally started in her 40s. She actually started learning online, which is even more remarkable about the story. She decided that she wanted to learn the flute. To be honest, I don't know exactly what it is about the flute that kind of drew her in, but she wanted to learn the flute, so she started to learn. And not 3-4 years later was playing at a kind of intermediate level. When I started working with her, she'd actually been working by herself for a few years already. We had a couple of technical things that we needed to fix and get in place. But can I tell you, this student is playing so beautifully today. Again, playing kind of Mozart and Dante and C's, that sort of grade 6, grade 7 repertoire, for those of you who understand what that level means. She's really playing at a very high level, and she had done, I think, pretty much no music at all. She may have done a tiny bit of piano when she was, I don't know, in primary school, but she came to it completely fresh. If someone had told me 10 years ago that this would be possible, that an adult in their 40s, 50s, even 60s could pick up a completely new instrument and learn it and learn to play it beautifully, I would have been shocked. So hopefully these stories can actually encourage you a little bit and help to actually solve this first big problem. Because here's the thing, you do not know what you are truly capable of. And only by diving in headfirst with all the courage you have will you actually figure it out. So be on the lookout for those thoughts, those little niggling, you can't do this, why are you even bothering? I want you to really take those thoughts and just have a good talking to them. They are not true, they are not realistic, and it's going to hold you back. I mentioned this with the previous student a moment ago. So we were speaking about the fact that there were some foundations missing and we needed to tweak a bit of her playing to really get the most out of her sound especially, but just out of her playing in general. And this brings me to big mistake number 2. And that is that you have some really crucial foundations missing. Now, these could be things like having really bad hand position. It could be big tone production issues and tone problems. It could be breathing. It could be body posture. There's a lot of things that could be missing. And identifying what those foundations are in the first place is the critical and crucial step to helping to solve them. But let's just talk a little bit why I think adults are so prone to missing these important steps. Well, the first obvious answer, maybe it's not so obvious, but many students have had teachers, maybe when they were younger, when they were in school, so they learned the flute, but their teachers may not have been the best teachers, if I have to be blunt, or they just didn't really know how to teach some of these foundations, and let's just give you a little responsibility. Maybe you just were a student that was not in a place to learn them. Either way, very often, especially for students that are coming back after many years, you've skipped some steps along the way. But even for students that have been learning either with a current teacher or they've been learning by themselves, especially for you that have been learning by yourself, very often important foundational steps are missed. And that's often because you don't even know what those steps are. So, and because I'm so passionate about helping students just get these foundations in place, we have actually created a free workshop. It's 100% free. It is a 90-minute workshop where I go over what all these foundational elements are that you need to really succeed on this instrument. And I give you a couple of tips already to get you started, but really you can see it as a kind of a blueprint to help you kind of get a kickstart into your flute journey, and we provide a whole bunch of extra resources and materials to help you along there too. Now, mistake number 3 is very much connected to mistakes number 1 and 2. And that is that as an adult, we very often are pretty bad at taking care of our bodies. And here's the thing, kids can get away with it. I mean, children can get away with most of these things, right? I mean, children tend to not be all that worried about their thoughts and what they're thinking all the time. The sweet little innocent things, they don't have as much nonsense going on in their head yet. And while children are really impatient and tend to skip steps, I think they often can get away with it much more than adults can. But the reality is that as an adult, our bodies just aren't quite what they used to be. So we have more aches and pains. We have to be more gentle with our bodies. We have to be more careful. And here's the thing, this mistake is probably the most tragic mistake of them all, because I have seen adults getting hurt, getting injured, and eventually having to stop playing. Now, the first really important thing is that we do check what's going on here, because what happens with our thought life in terms of stress and anxiety and trying too hard usually works itself out into our physical bodies. We tend to get really tense and tight and squeezing and pushing. This is like not out there stuff. It is just practical and very, very physiological and true. So absolutely, we've got to sort out what's going on up here. Likewise, if we have really bad hand positions, or we are contorting our body in weird ways, or we are breathing in a really unhealthy way, 10 to 1, we are going to hurt our bodies, or at least increase the chances of hurting our bodies even more. The truth is, the flute is a little bit of an awkward instrument to hold. I've been playing for 20 years, and I can tell you that I have found a way to play that is healthy and balanced and make sure that I really do look after my body. But there are some fundamentals that need to be in place to make sure that we are caring for our bodies. And that is to do things like regular stretches and exercises. Are we making sure that we are moving? Are we making sure that we're actually taking regular breaks in our practice? So I don't recommend you play for hours at a time. You do 20 minutes, even 10 minutes, and then you take a break. Do 15 minutes, take a break. So you do small practice sessions with lots of little breaks in between. So critical. This is like straight out of the scientific research papers that show that you need to be taking breaks, that you need to be doing kind of warm up and cool down exercises, that you need to not be practicing for hours and hours on end. It's dangerous. It is not going to help you improve. Working smart, working strategically, making sure that you have the correct foundations in place is how you make that amazing progress. Not how many hours of practice you can cram in and squeeze into a day. So, are you prioritizing this instrument, your body, and making sure that you're really taking care of it? If not, now's the time to start. I'm going to encourage you, go and check out that free workshop, because in that workshop, we also chat through a lot of good, healthy body posture, body use, and a bit of practice routine stuff. So go check that out. Happy practicing, and I'll see you guys over in the next video.